熱愛中國嘅宣教士有好多，其中有一個宣教士嘅家庭同中國有一段百年情緣，好幾代都同中國結下不解之緣。呢個就係熱愛中國嘅百年夥伴 Burklin 呢家人。Gustav Burklin 中文名叫做林納德，係 Burklin 呢個家族第一代嚟到中國嘅宣教士。佢出生於德國，喺神學院畢業之後俾神呼召，1925年嚟到中國服侍。
My grandfather was an amazing man of God. I do remember him and my grandmother telling us stories when I was young that they used to live in China.And I would always say, well, what were you doing in China? He goes, well, we were missionaries. And then I found out later, as I grew older and just understood more about ministry, that he had actually decided to become a missionary on his own as a young man and felt called by God to go to China, which he did, but he did not know my grandmother yet. And my grandmother had this similar vision,totally separate from my grandfather, and so she went to China as a single woman as well as a missionary. So they both met in China, actually in the province of Jiangxi, and that's where they met and then fell in love and then got married in China, and they had 3 children in China, and the middle boy was my father. And in those days, to learn Chinese, you had to go to England because all the textbooks were from English into Chinese, not German into Chinese.So can you imagine, you have to go to another country to learn another language, and that's what my grandparents did.
喺中國服侍要面對艱難嘅環境同各種生活上嘅困難，而佢哋個仔林明膽就係喺父母顛沛流離嘅時候喺安徽嘅蕪湖呱呱落地。雖然林納德同斐林兩夫婦飽受艱難，久經憂患，不過佢哋已經深深嘅愛上呢一度嘅人民，情願學農夫一樣喺江西做報道開荒嘅工作，足足有25年，直至到1949年先至移居德國。
My grandfather told me stories of how he would walk from one village to another just to share the gospel with different Chinese people. I heard from my dad when he would share stories about his parents ministering in China that they just loved the Chinese people, and the Chinese people loved them in return.
青少年時期嘅林明膽喺上海參加青年歸主，喺皮包帕牧師帶領聚會嘅時候深受感動，立志奉獻一生服侍耶穌基督。當佢跟住父母由中國移居德國嘅時候，林明膽已經係一個年青人。而當佢喺巴黎嘅一間聖經學校學習嘅時候，遇到並且愛上佢嘅未婚妻英格。林明膽後嚟成為一位牧師，熱心傳揚福音。佢曾經喺超過100個國家忠心傳揚主嘅福音，成為傳道人。有成千上萬嘅人透過佢嘅事工認識耶穌。雖然係咁，林明膽嘅內心深處一直都思念住佢出生同成長嘅中國故鄉。
My father was a lot of fun. He was always he was a great family man. He loved his kids. I have 3 younger siblings, and one of my favorite things about my father is just him coming home from work, and we would just love to play with him. And then the other thing I remember of my dad, he was very devoted to Jesus Christ. He loved to preach the word.
80年代中國對外開放，林明膽牧師立即出發，返到去佢思念咗好耐嘅中國，探訪佢同佢父母曾經生活過同服侍過嘅地方。隨住後嚟越嚟越多嘅探訪，佢同當地嘅教會甚至信徒都建立起深厚嘅友誼。林明膽牧師眼見好多中國嘅弟兄姊妹留喺屋企敬拜，好想幫佢哋建立一個實體嘅教會，可以喺教堂入邊敬拜神，所以就創辦中國夥伴 China Partner 事工， 去幫助中國教會嘅建立同發展。因為咁，林明膽牧師就成為 Burklin 家族第二代服侍中國嘅宣教士。
China Partner is a mission that really exists to serve the church in China. Our tagline under our logo is to serve the church in China. And I love that because we're not there to evangelize China. We're not there to build new churches in China. We're not there to tell the Chinese how to do anything or run anything. But we're simply there to serve, to help them, to do whatever we can to improve their ministry.
喺林明膽牧師往來中國嘅旅程當中，佢為中國教會嘅建立同發展持續禱告，亦都為嗰度嘅需要盡佢嘅本分。佢曾經協助江西聖經學校同當地教會嘅建立籌集資金，更加邀請世界各地嘅佈道家、神學教授同牧師去到唔同嘅教會同神學院培訓中國牧師、神學生同教會嘅同工。林明膽牧師咁講，佢喺中國出生，喺中國長大，同中國有特殊嘅親密關係。作為半個中國人，佢認為擁有中國文化背景，令佢覺得十分之自豪。
My dad would always introduce himself when he was asked to speak in a church or when he was introduced to a group of people in China, that he was like an egg. And people always asked him, like, what do you mean by an egg? Well, I look white on the outside, but really on the inside I'm yellow. He had a real special love for the Chinese. He always said, I love to come back to China. He had a deep love and appreciation for his home country. That's what he really considered China. This is where I want to be buried, he even once said. My mother wasn't so excited about that. She said, no, you're not going to be buried in China.
林明立作為林明膽牧師個仔，陪佢爸爸訪問過中國好多次，亦都深深咁愛上中國同中國嘅人民。後嚟神感動同呼召佢喺爸爸嘅挑戰底下，加入中國伙伴嘅事工。
My dad called me one day and said, I'm back in China. I'm doing some regular trips to my home country where I was born. There seems to be some open doors happening. I really would like to do more in China. In fact, he had, by that time, had already done several short-term training seminars, and it was booming. And he said, hey, Eric, would you consider working with me in this mission? And at that time, I had no idea about China. I mean, I knew about China through my grandparents, and I knew my father had been born in China, but personally, I never really had the vision of, or a calling, I need to go to China to share the gospel. But when my father, who I loved very much and respected, and asked me to serve with them, I thought, wow, this is pretty cool to work for your dad. And so I accepted. We prayed over it. My wife and I said, this should be something that I should consider. So I did. And so in 93, I joined China Partner. My father had incorporated that ministry shortly before that time. And that's how I got involved with China Partner. And once I started traveling with my father to China on a regular basis and meeting leaders and pastors and then the Chinese people, I did fall in love with the people of China. Even though we come from different cultures, in Christ we're all the same. God would give me the privilege of getting to know a great country like that. One of the highlights for me personally is just to see the next generation come up and being equipped and trained. And many of them who we had the privilege of training at that time now have taken over leadership positions. They're senior pastors of many churches. They're presidents of seminaries and Bible schools. And for me to still have that relationship with them is very, very special.
喺2020年嘅7月，林明膽牧師宣教士安息主懷。不過佢對福音、對中華人民嘅熱愛，呢份遺產仍然存在。喺中國伙伴百年事工嘅傳承，同喺呢個家庭幾代人嘅歷史裏頭，十分有力嘅見證聖經其中一個應許，愛係永不止息。
When my grandfather went there was 25, 1925. Now it's 2021. So that's a long time to be involved in that country, and it's pretty special. I'm reminded of what Jesus said to Peter. He said, On this rock, I will build my church. I will build my church. The personal pronouns are very significant in that verse. So who's going to do it? He is. And whose church is it? It's his. God will continue to build his church. It doesn't matter. It's not dependent on Eric Burklin or China Partner or even on my dad, who now has passed. It depends on him. And it's our joy and really my privilege to participate in his mission. It's really his mission that he is accomplishing through his people that are willing to be faithful to participate with him. And that's how I look at it also for China Partner. China Partner is a very small organization, but God is a big God who uses everyone who's willing to participate in his mission.
神嘅愛臨到 Burklin 呢個家庭，藉住佢哋喺過去嘅100多年接觸到無數嘅中華人民，我哋相信俾呢一份愛接觸過嘅人一定會將佢傳遞出去。但願我哋亦都能夠因為被主所愛，成為傳遞呢一份愛嘅接班人，讓愛可以永不止息。